Over the years, Chris Aasland has had a lot of memorable experiences hunting trophy whitetail in western Minnesota. But when he drew his sights on one particularly cunning buck, he didn't know he was in for the hunt of a lifetime. He named the buck Dodger, long before he would come to know just how appropriate that name was.
The first year I had an encounter with him was 2012. I was hunting on private land on our farm, and I didn't even know at the time that it was a buck I was going to be hunting because he was 2.5 years old. And I had let him walk. He came right by my stand during an October hunt. But I was hunting two other bucks that were 3.5 or 4.5 that were bigger. I was fortunate enough to find the buck's right side when he was a 2.5-year-old. So this was the first, this is what he had on his head the first year I had an encounter with him. So the second year in 2013, boom, this big buck shows up as a 3.5-year-old and as a 4x5, and right away I put money on it that it had to be, at the time, see, I didn't name Dodger until he was a 3.5-year-old, when he got a really big set of antlers on him, and then I started, okay, this is a buck I want to try and take. He was one of the biggest bucks on the farm during that year. So the second year when I named Dodger, the Dodger buck, and was hunting him and just him, I had passed a potential shooter before that early in the season, just waiting for the Dodger buck. And later on in December, I finally got a shot at him, and he came out just before closing, and I knew I was going to get the shot. And it was really, it was pretty still. It wasn't very windy, so I could almost hear the deer walking as they came by me because there was snow on the ground. And I was able to get the bow drawn back and got the pin on his vitals and everything. And when I hit that release, there's a little thud sound that the string makes as the string leaves the claws of the release. And that buck heard that, and he was going to take off, and his front leg slipped on the snow, and that lowered his body, and that arrow shot right over his back. And we tracked him the next morning and found just a little bit of blood. It was like just a couple of pin drops every 10 or 20 yards, so nothing really bad. So I'm sure he's fine. But the funny thing is, I found our arrow this morning. It's sticking in the snow here on the lake. And of course it's frozen, but all right, we got this arrow, and you can see, maybe not, there's a little bit of hair on there. There's maybe a little trace of blood right there, but so we maybe nicked him a little bit, but looks okay otherwise. Whitetails are pretty tough that way. They can take an injury. It takes a lot to kill a whitetail. You got to hit them in the boiler room, and especially in the lungs, or get the liver, or the heart, obviously. But they can survive a lot, actually. This antler here, I was fortunate enough to get a hold of this one too. And this is when he was a 3.5-year-old. And then the following year, he, 4.5 years old, he blew up into a really nice 5x5. Started showing up on camera again, doing the same routines again. So it was going to be all or nothing that year for that buck. And especially after I missed him, I really cranked it up that I really wanted to get him, being after you miss him, of course. And came back and checked trail cameras, and to my astonishment, I had people on my trail camera. And it was the camera I had set up where the area he was using, going into a bedding area. And what had happened was they must have hit him during the gun season, they were trying to recover him, and I could see blood on his belly. So then I realized, oh no, he'd been wounded by gun hunters. And so then I came to the realization, two things are going to happen. One, this buck is dead, and it's game over already. Or two, he's going to survive his wounds, and I don't know if I'll see him again after that. Later on, about maybe 10 days after that, I did see him. He was alive and well. Looked like he was doing okay after being hit. And so I thought, okay, great, he survived. He isn't dead. And so the hunt was on again. I already had a ladder stand in place, and I had an idea how I was going to go about hunting him. It was an inside corner, and I figured if he could come through there, I'd have a shot. And started hunting him again. It was a really foggy morning, and so fog is an excellent time to hunt deer. And I actually saw the buck, and he was hanging around with another buck, and but it was too far away to get a shot. And then the next day, Sunday, went out there, and I'll say this: you get a feeling about yourself when you're gonna get a kill, that you just have a feeling that, boy, something good is gonna happen. All the stars are gonna wind up, all the pieces of the puzzle are gonna come together, and I had that feeling that morning. And so I hunted and started to hunt, and deer started to show back up, the does and all the non-target deer, the 1.5-year-olds. And this other buck he was hanging around, he was a 3.5-year-old, and it was getting late. It was December 21st. And I saw that buck come in, and I was thinking to myself, oh, if this buck comes by, maybe I should shoot this one. Because I hadn't seen the Dodger buck that morning, but then all of a sudden he showed up, and I realized, oh, he's right here. And I just had to wait for the right moment. And he got within 30 yards of me when I was in that stand, but I had some branches and stuff in the way, so I couldn't get the shot off. And then he walked away, and in the stand I was at, there was a tree line, because again, I was in an inside corner. And he walked on the one side of the tree line and then came around. And then I realized, oh, here comes a deer, and he was coming around, and I realized it was that buck. And he didn't come right underneath my stand. He kept his distance, but he came through, and I had to shoot. There was a big tree that had fallen down, and I had to shoot through the tree limbs actually, but he came through one small opening. It was a 30-yard shot, and luckily that's where I had my bow sighted in, and it didn't take very long, but I was able to get drawn. And I got him. I got him. Well, I just hit that Dodger buck. I think I got him. This is going to be an awesome hunt if I got him. He's right down over in the field, and it looked like it was a good pass through. I'm going to just give him some time. And he ran out in the corn and laid down. Oh my gosh. I hit him good. It was probably like about a 30-yard shot, a 35-yard shot, but oh, that ain't good. He's up again. All I can do is give him time and pray that a fatal hit. And he was pretty still after that, so it didn't take long. I had taken out the liver and part of his lungs. So your emotions really it's really overwhelming, actually, because you put all this time into this animal, and then when you get them, it's a little sad too, because now the whole saga is over. You did get the animal and harvest them, but now it's over too. So I stayed in my stand and left him out there for, I don't know, almost an hour, and I was really cautious because I did not want this buck giving up and taking off after I had put that shot on. So I wanted to make sure he was down. So I watched him for quite a while to make sure he wasn't moving before I went out there to check him out and everything. I didn't know until after I harvested him that at the time he had a bad experience. He got a Grim Reaper broadhead stuck in his neck, and that's what made that buck a survivor. So he had a bad experience, from a hunter, another hunter. The arrowhead that was stuck in his vertebrae here was found by the taxidermist who mounted him. This part here was made the story of this buck come full circle to me about why he was so hard to hunt, and it was because he had this broadhead stuck in his neck. The Dodger buck was the hardest buck I ever hunted. It's a big chess game is what it is, and more times than not the deer wins and the hunter doesn't, because they have a ways of patterning the hunter before the hunter patterns the buck. But what I learned about this buck is that he was a survivor, and what I mean about that he was really particular about going through areas and watching out for his own skin, and he would let other deer go before him many times before he would deem an area to be safe that he could go through. It was kind of fitting that he got the name Dodger because of everything he missed. I missed him and actually hit him with that arrow and put a scar on his back. Some other hunters put a slug into his belly. He had a broadhead in his neck, so he'd been dodging a lot of people trying to kill him, so Dodger was a fitting name for him.